So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Teaching Kitchen today for Food Talks. So today we have a very special guest. Michelle McKenzie is here to talk about her brand new book, Dandelion Quince, her first one. Do you want to speak a little bit about yourself before we get started with the demo?
Sure. So I'm working on my second cookbook now. This one actually came out almost a year ago now. I'm in the process of working on my second cookbook. But before I got into food and cooking, I was actually a nutrition and biochemistry major at UNC Chapel Hill, studying fat enzymes, and was really fascinated with food and healing and how food really affects the body. And so I went to culinary school in New York City and went to a school that actually specialized a little bit in food and healing. They taught you French technique, but they also taught about Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, and sort of the Eastern view of nutrition after I got the Western view. And I still thought I was going back to school to do, I'd taken MCAT, so that I was going to go do either research or go to med school. And then I worked at this amazing restaurant in New York and just never looked back. And worked in restaurants for many years, became a private chef. And then I started teaching people at a place called the Cancer Wellness Center in Atlanta and fell in love with teaching. And I've been teaching in some capacity ever since. And I just left my full-time job recently as the director of a culinary school in San Francisco to work full-time on my second book. I wrote this book while running a cooking school and teaching.
That's impressive.
I don't want to do that again. I did it, and I felt like Superwoman, and then I kind of fell apart and put myself back together again. And now I'm going to keep it a little bit more sane this time around. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this book.
Excellent. Well, what are you cooking for us today?
So we're making two seasonal recipes, two things that happen to be these are recipes that are really great for the transition from summer to fall, which we're in right now. And we also picked two that are vegetarian, actually vegan, well, except for some feta. And you can leave that off if you don't want cheese. So the first one we're doing is a watermelon and cucumber salad. And I'm going to show you the photo in the book because the original recipe is in the Sprouts chapter, and it's on page 241 if you guys want to look. And so we're not using Sprouts today because Sprouts, there is a little bit of concern about Sprouts if they're not handled really well. If you buy Sprouts from a farmer's market, freshly sprouted, or you sprout them at home, they're perfectly safe. But today we're using watercress, which I mentioned in the recipe as a good substitute. And watercress is also a bit of an unsung vegetable. It has kind of a peppery bite that some people don't like, but if you find ways to balance that peppery bite to sort of complement it, for instance, with something sweet like watermelon, it's really palatable. And watercress is like a powerhouse of a green, just full of a lot of nutrients that are really good for us. So I just wanted you guys to see the beautiful buckwheat sprouts because they're so pretty. And buckwheat sprouts are also incredibly high in calcium and lots of other good things for you. So if you can find those, seek them out. And they have these beautiful pink stems that look really lovely next to the watermelon. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the second recipe we're going to do is basically a vegan taco. So it has beans and has collard greens. And the collard greens kind of give it an additional meatiness. And they cook some collard greens in advance. They taste amazing. Collard greens, again, I grew up in the South, and I ate collard greens and cornbread for breakfast. That cornbread was fried in bacon fat. It was not vegan. But I love the combination of corn and collard greens together. I think they just go really well. So I thought about the collard green taco. And we're going to make the unsung vegetable in addition to collard greens that we're using in that recipe is the tomatillo, which has its own chapter in the book. So I'll talk a little bit about that when I get over there. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today.
That's great. So as she's cooking, you guys are more than welcome to ask questions. It's kind of a little funky.
I love questions.
Yes. That's great.
Talk to me.
I'm just going to repeat them back into the mic so that those on the live stream can hear us. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
Awesome.
So I'm going to start with the watermelon and cucumber salad. And a lot of people don't know this, but melons and cucumber are in the same family. And they go really well together. And if you actually get some heirloom melons and some heirloom cucumbers, you can see the resemblance between them. Has anyone ever seen those little lemon cucumbers? They're round. They look a little bit like a little melon. So they're in the same family. They go really, really well together. So for the taste that you're getting today, you're getting like, we cut up the watermelon really small, but I'm going to show you how I plate this if it was for dinner, like an elegant dinner, and this was like a family style platter. So I take half a watermelon and I peel it with a knife, sort of like you would peel an orange that you were going to supreme. And I just run my knife like kind of along the rind. This is just an easy way to get in there. And because we're going to cut this into almost shards, like sort of 1/4-inch shards, you don't have to cut in a round way. You can just kind of get this peel straight off. And this is great because it's a seedless watermelon. It should make it really easy. And then what we're going to do is cut the watermelon and the cucumber in similar sized pieces. And like I said, the watermelon, a lot of people, do you guys raise your hand if you've had watermelon in a savory dish? Savory. Oh, lots of people. Great. It goes really well with cheese. And people grill it. What do you guys, how have you had it? What doesn't go with cheese? It's true. I know. So I'm going to take this guy. So I start out like sort of maybe somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2-inch slices. It also goes really well with vinegar. And again, that's about balance. You have sweet watermelon, so something peppery or spicy, and then something acidic. Acid balances sweet when you want like a full, especially for like a savory dish, you want that acid in there. I like acid even in my desserts, but I'm a huge fan of acid, so I'm kind of a weird one in that way. So then just kind of, I don't like things to look too perfect. I like them to look a little bit haphazard. So I'm going to cut those into sort of kind of triangles, like this. And then the cucumber we're using today, this is just sort of a regular cucumber. If you can get those cucumbers that have, they almost look like snakes. I don't know, they're showing up at farmers markets. I think more and more farmers are growing them. I've even seen them at Whole Foods and some grocery stores. Those are kind of a Middle Eastern style. They're called Armenian cucumbers. You'll see them called Persian cucumbers. There's several different varieties in there, and they have practically no bitterness. So you don't have to peel them. You don't have to seed them. They're amazing. There's like, if you can find those, they're incredibly good. So same thing with the cucumber. You can kind of, maybe we'll just do some slices. And if you're going to cook a lot of vegetables at home, something I say in the beginning of the book, and this is true really across the board, but especially if you want to do a lot of vegetable cooking, your best friend is a big cutting board and a sharp knife. You will hate cooking vegetables if you have a small cutting board and a dull knife. It's like if you had a desk here that was like crammed and your computer was slow and you had papers stacked up all over the place, you would kind of hate your job no matter how much you actually loved the content of your job. And vegetables are the same way. You can't do a lot of chopping. If the cutting board's really small, it's just incredibly frustrating. I'd have to keep moving stuff off the board as I went. And this is a good one, a nice big wooden cutting board. So I'm going to do one more little cucumber here. All right, so this is like an incredibly fast salad as well. I love, fall produce is my favorite. I feel bad like saying that. I shouldn't. I wrote a book on vegetables for year round, but it's my favorite. But summer is great because it's easy. You barely have to do anything to it or cook it. So right before I plate this, I want to talk about these little guys. So I have a recipe in the book for pickled shallots. So shallots are typically used, this is a peeled shallot. It's the allium family, so they're related to onions, but they have a much more mild flavor, a little bit sweeter. And they're typically used in sauces and vinaigrettes. That's how most people see them. But in other parts of the world, they use them very differently. They're pickled often, and they're fried until they get crispy. And I also have a recipe. Shallots have their own chapter in the book. That's how much I love these things. And I sort of think, even though people know what a shallot is, they do one or two things with it, and then they don't know what else to do with it. So to have to give a shallot more of a chance to show off what it can do. And when you fry shallots, even though that's not what we're doing, I have to put in a plug for the fried shallots. And you do them. It's kind of a weird method. It's a slow fry. When you do a slow fry on them, it takes about 20 minutes. They stay crispy for a few days. You can just put them in, like a little pint container like this, cap it at room temperature, and they stay crispy. And you can just top salads, grains, eggs, whatever with them. They're addictive. But these are the pickled shallots, and they've been sitting in red wine vinegar with a little bit of salt for some period of time. I mean, even if you just do this for 5 minutes, it makes a difference. It takes the bite off the shallot, and the shallot infuses the vinegar. So then you have your like garnish, which is the sliced shallot, and you also have shallot vinegar. So next time you go to make and when I do this, I usually make a half cup portion. So when you, next time you go to make a salad dressing, you don't need to dice a shallot. You have shallot vinegar already made. In this case, we're gonna use both the pickled shallot and the shallot vinegar in this dressing. So just wanted to talk about that. The other components of the salad, so cucumber, watermelon, pickled shallot. We have some cilantro. We're using a lot of cilantro. Do I have any cilantro haters today? We can leave some cilantro. I know. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So we need 3 tacos and salads without any cilantro. I encourage the cilantro haters, though, to try these cilantro flowers that I picked this morning because, so cilantro is in the coriander family. And has anyone had coriander seed, the spice? It tastes different than the green part of the plant, right? And when cilantro bolts, that's what happens. So this used to look like this. And then late in the season, when the plant's been in the ground for a long time, it bolts and it forms seeds and flowers. And the flowers, it's all edible. That whole thing is edible. I use the stems like a bay leaf when I'm braising something. And I use the flowers and the seeds as garnish. And they have a totally different flavor. So maybe when you go, just, no pressure, but maybe try it. And farmers are now selling these. So again, another chapter in the book is flowering herbs, bolted herbs. And, I see people go buy these like things of dill blossoms and cilantro blossoms, and they just keep walking. They're like, those are beautiful. What are those? And the guy's like, they're dill flowers. And they're like, wow. And then they don't buy them or they know what to do with them. So I was like, they're getting their whole chapter too. And then some sumac. Sumac is a berry. And because this has some feta, and we've got the watermelon and the cucumber, sumac is like a wonderful, another bright element. It tastes a little bit like lemon. And it's really beautiful on top of the watermelon. And this is used a lot in Middle Eastern cooking. And I encourage you to seek this out. My next book is on the modern larder. So something like sumac will get featured extensively. It's the unsung pantry ingredients, really. I had my unsung vegetable heroes, and now I'm doing the pantry. And then some toasted pine nuts, which aren't listed in the recipe, but they're in the photo. They're not necessary, but they add a nice crunchy element. So we have our acid, which is a nice contrast in flavor to the sweet watermelon, and pine nuts, or you could use pistachios would be really good, are a nice contrast in texture to the rest of the salad. So when I talk about plating salads, I find this to be a really, maybe you guys are savvy cooks, but when I was teaching in San Francisco, over and over again, people had never learned how to compose a salad. Like most people know how to toss gently with your hands. They've seen that on TV. I rarely toss a salad, almost never. There's a few salads I toss. Like if I just want like a simple green salad to go with like, some sort of, braised meat dish, then I'll just toss that salad in a simple lemon vinaigrette. But most of my salads, I compose. And that is because I want the flavor elements to stay a little bit separate. And I don't want things to get mashed. Like, for instance, something like cheese or something like avocado or something like beet. There's just so many things that when you mix them, they get all over the place, and I don't want that. But mostly I compose because it's pretty, and because when you're eating the salad, each bite is different. Sumac's not in every single bite that you get. The pickled shallot isn't in every single bite that you get. So what I would do here is I would do just kind of, and like I said, I like to do sort of a haphazard, asymmetrical layering thing. So a little bit of watermelon, a little bit of cucumber, and then I'll do the pickled shallot. I like to do right on top of the, kind of scatter it on top of the watermelon a little bit. And this is a good salad. It can sit for a little bit. It's going to sit while I make the tacos.
I was going to say, this seems like a really good salad that you could pre-make and bring to like a house party, dinner party or something.
Yeah, I would pre-make all the elements and put them, go to like a restaurant supply store and buy quart and pint containers. I don't use like Tupperware at home because these are great. They stack great in the fridge. I would put all the elements in here, and then you could just quickly compose it. This is the watercress that I mentioned earlier. So let's see. I like to let's do some watercress. Who's had watercress? Do you like it? Keep your hand up if you like it. Great. You guys are good eaters.
Success.
I know. Got the right audience today. A little bit of cilantro, and I'm a huge fan of mint in this salad. So if you like mint, or if you don't think you like mint, but you want to try it, this is a great salad to try that with. A little bit of cheese. Let's see if I can use a spoon. And this is crumbled feta. I really like the feta too that you can buy in a block. So because this is crumbled, instead of getting it all over the place, because if you had it in the block, I'd cut it like I cut the watermelon, and so it would stay kind of separate. And so instead of taking this crumbled feta and putting it all over, I'm gonna just spoon it into little portion, like kind of around. And as people were serving themselves off a big platter, they would get some feta. But not everything is like blanketed in white, salty feta. Feta is my favorite cheese, by the way. Love feta, especially summer. Like it goes so well with summer stuff. Okay, so some feta, some pine nuts.
Where do you source your pine nuts?
That's a good question. If you're going to buy pine nuts, they go rancid really quickly. So go just find a place near you that has high turnover, like usually like a co-op market type thing that has a bulk section. The best pine nuts I have are like vacuum packed in like a freezer somewhere. But I find very few grocery stores do that. Maybe online. If anyone has a good source for some good pine nuts, let me know. I don't think they're that easy to find some good ones. All right, do I have everything? So I'm going to basically just compose a really quick vinaigrette. So quick. It's just like a little bit of shallot vinegar. And I'm going to put salt in the vinegar. I hope I don't have any people who are offended by this. And I'm also going to salt the watermelon with some coarse salt. So I put fine salt in the vinegar, which is kind of dissolving right now as it sits here. And then some coarse salt on top of the watermelon and cucumber. And then I'm going to take some olive oil. And when you're making vinaigrettes, it's just a ratio, so you don't really need to think about it or measure it. It's 1 part acid to 3 parts oil. So you can just kind of eye it. Sometimes it's 1 to 2, but usually it's 1 to 3 is what tastes best to most people. And then I'm just going to spoon this around, so no tossing. And then I'm going to just quickly do 1 layer. And as I do that, does anyone have any questions about anything I've said? I'm going to do 1 more layer on top. Not even a complete layer, kind of a half layer. Any questions? No? I'm just going to keep talking then.
So I was thinking about these blossoms because they have this lovely peppery aftertaste.
Uh-huh.
Would you steep them in something, maybe in oil or vinegar or cream?
You could definitely, any herb blossom, you can steep into vinegar. The cream's a great idea. I mean, I assume you know this since you're asking, but if you just take something and put it in cold cream overnight, because of cream's fat content, it will absorb the flavor. So like, let's say you wanted to make a lavender panna cotta. You could just take lavender and put it in cold cream overnight and use that cream to make panna cotta the next day. You'd have lavender panna cotta or creme brulee or whatever. So I imagine, yeah, it would work. But they're so, I buy a bunch and just keep it on my chopping block. And I go through it so quickly. I've never had any left over to try anything unusual with it. But yeah, I imagine you could. I've been trying to eat a lot of protein lately. And so like one of my breakfasts has been like refried black beans with 2 eggs and tortillas and so like just tons of cilantro flowers to just kind of lighten it up a little bit. To attempt to lighten it up a little bit. All right, so more. I'm going to kind of go heavier on the watercress here. Can you guys all see this? Can you see this where it is? On the fancy TV situation?
If we move it to the...
Yeah, I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. I should have asked.
Oh, this one in front. Oh, no.
No?
No.
We'll pass it around.
We can place it up front after it's complete. It's beautiful. Michelle and I
I'm
were
gonna come
talking
back over
before, and we were saying that no matter what you do, as long as you have edible flowers on the plate, it's going to be pretty.
It's true.
And people will eat it.
And if you guys, we put those out, you guys can just pick them for your tacos later or for your salads as you want. All right, so some beautiful sumac on top. And this I am going to kind of sprinkle all around the plate. And I just want to say, this is kind of more along the lines of my second book, but it's relevant here. I believe that there's an issue with the tyranny of black pepper, like black pepper as the ubiquitous seasoning. And I'm in my second trimester right now. When I was in my first trimester, I found it vile, and I was also having trouble cooking, and I couldn't eat anywhere because black pepper was in everything. I'd go somewhere, it was in the hummus. I'm like, why does black pepper need to be in hummus? It was just everywhere. It was in my taco, it was on everything. And there's so many beautiful spices out there. Watercress stands in for black pepper here. It has that element to it. And then something like sumac, you don't need to put black pepper on everything. I've been saying this for years, but now I really feel strongly about it. I'm gonna go on a crusade. I'm gonna write an article and just, and then the Black Pepper Association's gonna come after
It can be your third cookbook, the Black Pepperless Cookbook.
The Pepperless Cookbook. All right, this guy's done. All right, even if you couldn't see, I just want you, yeah. So if I had been able to, oh, Dee Dee will take it. Thank you.
So the screen can show.
Oh,
No, the screen.
that's it. Okay. So here, I'll put it up here for now. And then I'm going to get my board clean. Let's see.
So I have a quick question for you, Michelle.
Yeah.
A lot of your vegetables and fruits come from the farmer's market, obviously. And I know for myself, sometimes when I go to farmer's market, especially if it's not in my hometown, it's kind of hard to navigate them because there's so many different choices and stalls and things that I don't understand what they are because they look like foreign aliens to me sometimes.
Like kohlrabi.
Like kohlrabi, yes, absolutely. That's definitely the alien. So do you have any resources or suggestions of how we kind of navigate that so that we can get more comfortable with shopping within a farmer's market?
Yeah. Well, my cookbook's a resource.
Well, there you go.
And God, wow, I've gotten good at saying that. I was used to be super uncomfortable saying that. But really, I think, so here's how I approach the farmer's market, because you can't go with a list. That's kind of the hard part for people. Can you pass me a paper towel for this watermelon juice? So you can't go with a list, right? Because you have no idea really what's going to be there. There's a few dependable things. So I do a lap. Go get yourself a cup of coffee, if that's your thing, and then just leisurely walk around and take in what's there. And then what I do is I bring a sketch, I have a little notebook, like a moleskin or something, and I kind of write down the things that excited me, just really quickly, just messy, usually at the top. This is what a chef would do, basically. And then you can just say oh, okay, the cilantro blossoms looked really good, and so did the watermelon, and I saw those Armenian cucumbers. I've been wanting to try one of those, and okay, it kind of could come together in a bit of a Middle Eastern salad. I have some feta at home, and you kind of just sketch, in your mind even, or you can do it on paper, what you want, and you have a shopping list. It can happen that way. So I think the lap is really important. And then the people who work at farm stands are generally pretty knowledgeable. Even if they can only give you one thing to do, that's one thing to do with, the one that I hear a lot about is the fig leaves. Has anyone seen fig leaves? Or have a fig tree, or your neighbor has a fig tree? So farmers usually, at the farm stand, when I hear people ask about the fig leaves, because they're beautiful and they smell amazing, I brought some smoked fig leaves from last year. We can pass these around. You can smell them. I smoked them. I bought them fresh. And I just noticed that people, the farmer would say, well, you can wrap fish in them, which is a wonderful thing to do with fig leaves. It's delicious. And the fig leaves impart kind of a coconut-like flavor to your fish. You can wrap cheese in them as well. But that was the only thing that everyone was being told. And I'm like, well, there's obviously a lot more that you can do with these, and I'm going to start playing. So I dried them, made spice blends out of them. I smoked them. I made sugar. That sugar went into a shortbread. So I would say have one thing to do with them, get one thing to do with them, go home, and then play. Just play a little bit. But the lap is really important, that initial lap. You can build a little home smoker. I have a little ceramic Japanese thing that's kind of meant to be a home smoker, but in the back of the book, I tell you how to build a home one. And they don't take very long to get some smoke and get brittle. It happens pretty quickly. Okay, any questions on this recipe before I move on? So the next thing we're going to do is the collard green tacos. And this is going to definitely be like a TV scenario because these greens take about 30 minutes to cook. So I'm going to get this pan going over kind of medium-high heat back here. All right, so you could use, I'm all about using kind of different fats in the kitchen, and I love, pork fat and bacon fat, and you could definitely use that to cook these collard greens. For this dish, I wouldn't necessarily love olive oil. I also recommend coconut oil. We have some coconut butter here, which gives you the flavor and kind of nutritional properties of coconut oil, but it won't quite cook. So I'm going to combine some canola oil with the coconut oil. Get that melting. Okay, it's hot. We have some serrano chilies, and those are going to be for garnish, though. So did you guys, when you cooked your collard greens, did you throw in the chili de árbol? Yeah. So I don't have one up here to show you, but there's a chili that I use in my kitchen every single day, and it is called chili de árbol, which just means chili of the tree. I don't know why it has that name. It's the actual name of the chili, and you always find them dry. And I use them I like to tell people because they understand, like a bay leaf. So I'll heat up my cooking oil or fat, whatever it is, and I add my chili de árbol. And depending on how much heat I want, I can remove it quickly. It'll just add a little bit of heat. Or I can leave it in while I cook my greens and then remove it at the end. And make sure you remove it at the end. And what that does is it just adds kind of depending on your chilies, it adds, and how long you leave it in, it adds a kind of pervasive heat, a gentle heat, versus adding a bunch of chili flakes, which can be a little bit overpowering. Or if you added chili, I don't like chili powder personally. I think it always tastes stale. So this is kind of like a really fresh, fragrant chili to use, and they stay good in the cupboard for a long time. I keep it whole. You can break it in half, but you're going to get more heat. So you can kind of determine how much heat you want. And when I need chili flakes, I take my whole dried chili de árboles, and I put them in a spice grinder and I grind them myself. Because so many of the chilies that you buy, they're stale. They've been exposed to the light too long, and they don't have a lot of their flavor. Chilies have a really complex flavor. They're not just heat. They're floral. Some are kind of earthy. You get all these flavors from them, but you have to get, once they've been powdered, you lose that. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit. Okay. So that's it. I would just cook this with some oil, salt, and chili. So I'm going to just put these in, and these will wilt down by half. And how long you have to cook collard greens depends on how thinly you cut them and how young they are. If you buy little baby collard greens, they can cook pretty quickly. Some of if you get a big bunch, they can take up to an hour. So with recipes, you can't really, you have to think about your produce and go with that. Pay attention to that. So while those are cooking, I'm going to throw together a Tomatillo Salsa. I'm going to pass around a tomatillo. So these sweet little guys come into season about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, and they last all the way through October. And you can look under that little paper-like lantern, and you'll see the green tomatillo. They're actually ripe when they're yellow, but we use them primarily when they're green. And you can roast them, and that gives them great flavor, grill them, or use them raw. When you use them raw, this is how easy a salsa is. Tomatillos, just quartered. So you remove the husk, you rinse them, they go in. Add some salt. Some chopped chili. So those collard greens are they're spicy. I'm going to add just a little bit of chopped chili. If I have time, I'll show you my favorite way to cut a chili, but only if we have time. Let's see. And some garlic and some cilantro. And when I'm using cilantro, I use herbs all the time, and oftentimes I pick them, like I did for the salad, where you just get these little whole leaves like this, because I think they should be an ingredient. I don't think they should just be a garnish. But for something like this, I just take my knife and I just shear off some leaves quickly. Yeah, see, a sharp knife makes cooking very efficient and safe. And then I form them into a bit of a bundle and then just slice them like that and they go straight in. I'm gonna do a little bit of, just a tiny bit of lime in this. And we're just gonna puree this. Oh, these lime, I don't need a lot of lime in this. This lime is like practically dry. All right. I like them better than tomatoes and salsa. That's just me. Oh, you need to chop it up a little bit. You can't put it in whole or else, because I want this to remain coarse. And if I put my cilantro in whole, by the time the cilantro gets chopped, basically, it'll be pureed. And I want this to be a little bit coarse. Like this is kind of what we're going for, where you can still get there's still some texture to the tomatillos. Good question. And again, if you wanted like a deeper, smokier flavor, you could char grill these, even just on a cast iron pan on your stovetop. You could get some char on the tomatillos and then do that. I think I just got cilantro in my glasses. It's okay.
How long are tomatillos in season for?
I think around here through October.
Okay. Make a lot and can it.
One of my favorite recipes in the book is a green fish stew that uses tomatillos. Love it so much. All right, and that is your salsa. Trick, I'm sure some of you, if you've taken classes here, you've probably seen this. You just put your finger in the bottom of the bowl and then it doesn't fall out. And then I would let this sit for about 20 minutes and then taste and add more salt before serving it. I'm sure it needs some more salt. Let the flavors kind of meld a little bit before you serve it. How are we on time?
Good, 20 minutes.
Good, great. I love going on tangents, and then I never know.
I do too. This works well.
All right, let's get this board wiped off. So what I'm going to show you now is how I would compose one of these collard green tacos. And I'm going to show you, you know what, since we have a little extra time, I'm going to show you just because I taught knife skills once a month for 4 years. At least. And I've noticed like people don't know how to get into a chili. So I'm just going to show you real fast. So the seeds run down the middle. This is a huge one. This will be easy. Sometimes when you get the little serranos, they're really hard. But the seeds run down the middle and they contain most of the heat. So I like to cut around the seeds. So I hold my chili lengthwise and I just cut off the flesh of the pepper around. So I just rotate the pepper and go around the seeds so the seeds are still contained right there. Now this, you could, like in a blender, if you were making a super pureed salsa, you could just remove the stem and put this in there and get like a spicy salsa. So this has a use if you want to use it for that. Then I just, like if you wanted a fine dice, I would take these and I go, so the shiny skin side down. The knife will cut much more easily through the dull side. And I cut little matchsticks with my fingers tucked under. So then you get these matchsticks. Then you can take those and kind of line up maybe 4 of them and then slice those into a dice. And that's just like a really fast way to get into a chili. So I just wanted to show you that because I get lots of people who like look at a chili and they just start like slicing it. And I don't know. A lot of people know how to cut an onion because that's demoed so often, but something like a chili just gets forgotten. Okay, so to heat up some tortillas, I'm gonna put a skillet on like medium low, or what I think is medium low on this. So, and I have a little stack, these super tiny, really cute tortillas. So if you're heating up tortillas for like a taco. Like again, I love like teaching people how to cook for more than just one person. So let's say you're cooking for like 6 people and you want to heat up, or even just 3 people, you want to heat up a stack of little tortillas. Can you guys see this? Here, I'll even. Here's an easy way to do it. So you put 1 tortilla down in the pan. This might take it a second. Maybe I'll cheat. Move the collard greens and use this back guy because it's already hot. Okay, so you put 1 down, and while that side's going to heat up, okay? I'm so used to using flame that I'm like, with induction, I'm like, what's happening? I can't see it.
It's like a spaceship.
And so so that side gets warm, and then you flip it over, and you add your next cold tortilla to the hot side. So while the other, okay, this guy's in the pan. For those of you who can't see the skillet, this guy's in the pan. He's hot. I flip him over. I add my cold tortilla. This side's heating up. I flip this over. I add another cold tortilla. This side gets hot. I flip it over. I add another cold tortilla. Right? And then if you're taking them to the table to serve them, wrap them in like, I do parchment and then foil. Because once you heat them up, if you don't wrap them or serve them right away, they get kind of like rubbery. There we go. Flip them, add that one, let that go. So I'm going to heat up a few and I'm going to compose a taco. Yes? I just do that because I'm weird about aluminum foil. That's just like one of my things. I don't like aluminum foil on my food. You see too many times, when you cook a lot, like on aluminum pans, aluminum racks, you see it come off on food a lot. It's not going to come off on tortillas because they have nothing acidic in them really. Well, they do, but it's not going to come off on tortillas. But when you see it come off on things like baked goods, I had a chef cooking a private dinner at my cooking school, and the best way, well, here's another little side tip. See, I love these tangents because you get little tips. If you want to get really crispy chicken, like crispy skin on your chicken, you salt it the night before, but you don't wrap it in Tupperware or put it in a baggie. You put it on a cooling rack set on top of a sheet pan so that evaporation can happen. But he was just doing chicken breasts, and he used an aluminum drying rack. And when he got in the next morning, the chicken was like gray from the aluminum. Anything that's reactive, I'm just super careful with. If that makes any sense. So there's just those little stories where I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to always protect my food from anything that's going to react with it. All right, I'm going to get my composition ingredients up here. So Chef Dee Dee and her team mashed some avocado. We have some sour cream or creme fraiche. We have cilantro blossoms, which you can also put on that salad. Some thinly sliced green onion. I love radishes on tacos, just thinly sliced radishes. They've got that peppery element without the black pepper. This other way. Some lime and some cilantro. I'm going to use the cilantro blossoms, so I'm going to leave that off. All right, so does everyone understand the taco thing? Because I'm going to turn this off. How to heat the tortillas. Okay, I think that's good. I think you know what you're doing. All right, so I'm going to take 2 of these. And I like to do avocado down first because it kind of creates a bit of a glue for the other ingredients. And I have some cooked beans back here. You could use pinto, black, really any bean that you like.
Do you recommend cooking your own beans if you have the time?
I don't know. I'm relaxed on the bean thing. Well, if you really want to know.
We do.
I have a Colombian bean pot, which is made of clay. I eat a lot of beans. And beans cooked in clay do taste different than any bean you've ever had. And I'm not just saying that. Because honestly, between like this and canned, you jazz it up with some chili and some salt. You're okay. It's going to taste delicious. And honestly, like, if canned beans enable you to cook at home versus eat out, buy canned beans, by all means. But I have this Colombian bean pot. It's huge, and I cook a big batch of beans, and you can freeze them. They freeze really well, but the clay imparts this like unbelievable flavor to the beans. And I grew up, like I said, my family's from, the South, and they also cooked beans in clay. And like baked beans were baked in like a bean pot. Like, it was a southern bean pot, it's a different shape. And they baked them in clay. It's like a thing, beans in clay.
It's totally different than like a lactose or something else that's glazed. There's no glaze.
Right, no glaze. You clean it carefully, and you just don't want to use an abrasive sponge or anything, but you can still use a little soap. You would never put it in the dishwasher. It would crack in the dishwasher. You just have to be careful about temperature differences. It will crack. But I've been using mine for years. I've never had a problem. Huh? Sorry, I can't understand. Porous. It's porous. Yeah. It's porous. But people have been cooking in clay for a long time. I did a pilot for the cooking channel. The whole episode was about cooking with clay. I mean, I geek out on the clay thing. Like, I really love it. There's a great shop in Sonoma called Bram, B-R-A-M. Bram is the name of an Egyptian clay pot that's also in the book. And that shop has clay from all over the world. And it's just a cool shop, and it's run by Ash and Shelley. And Ash is this guy who will just like fill you with information and maybe give you vegetables from his garden. You guys should field trip up to Bram in Sonoma, and then go shopping, and then go to El Molino Central, which is the best Mexican food in the Bay Area, in my opinion. Bay Area, it's like Sonoma, it's Boys Hot Springs. I don't know if that's the Bay Area. It's within 2 hours, but it's a field trip. It's a fun day. El Molino Central. Who's been to the ferry market on Saturday mornings? The ferry building? You guys know Primavera? El Molino is the restaurant of Primavera. So if you've had a Primavera fish taco, you know what I'm talking about. They're delicious. Okay, back to these pork tacos that have been abandoned. Some collard greens on top of the beans. You don't want to overstuff these, but you want them to be generous. But overstuffed are too hard to eat. And then whatever you want. Like, if you want some extra chili, you could do some of the chili, a little bit of creme fraiche, a few radishes. So when you do radishes for tacos, though, they need to be paper thin. So either a really sharp knife or a mandolin, if you feel comfortable using one. It's a great tool for efficiency as well. I don't care that much about efficiency in general, but I understand that people who don't cook for a living, they need it to be efficient. And so I love giving those tips when I can. Okay. And then some cilantro flowers, which totally changed the game on like how pretty a taco is.
Flowers make everything beautiful. Look at that.
And then you crack open a beer. Okay. So some little vegetarian tacos. And that's it.
Lovely.
Oh, no. That's not it.
The salsa.
Talking about like aluminum, and forgot all about the Tomatillo Salsa. This salsa, by the way, like once I love it with eggs, like fried eggs. I eat a lot of eggs too. So fried eggs, tomatillos, it's good on chicken, it's good on grilled corn. You can put it on sandwiches, like mayo and then a little bit of tomatillo salsa, some turkey, some pickled jalapenos.
That's great. Those both look amazing.
Okay.
So I think we're going to open it up to some questions. I'm sure you guys have a couple. Anything.
Cooking related. No, I don't forage. So purslane, in San Francisco, which is, primarily where I shop, so definitely farmers markets, but even a co-op market like Rainbow Grocery sells purslane. Oh, I don't know if I've had that experience. I've seen the one in Rainbow. It's like in little bundles. It's still small. I mean, it grows long and spindly, and it also grows like short and squat. If you've seen a flavor difference, it could be just like where it is in the season, in the soil. But nettles I see everywhere now. I've even seen those at like big grocery stores. God, I would not want to forage for nettles. My first experience with nettles was in Wales, hiking. And I had no idea what they were. That was not a good experience. Yeah, I'm seeing that around. Something like burdock, I would seek out, although I have seen it at Whole Foods, I would seek it out from like a Japanese market. Like if you can find, it's fun too if you want to seek something out. It's like an adventure to go find this cool thing. I don't know if it's still a good resource. I haven't used it in years, but Chowhound is a site that used to have, the sort of forums where people would say, has anyone found burdock in Mountain View? And then people would respond and say where they had found it. So that's one way you could maybe seek it out. But definitely farmers markets and ask farmers if they grow. Sometimes too, when a farmer hears enough requests, they will start growing it. The reason we grow so much romaine in this country is not because it's good for the earth to grow mostly romaine, or because it's good for us, or because romaine is the best, although I like it in a lot of things. It's because it's what they think will sell. So if somebody thinks that something else will sell, they'll start growing it. If they know, farmers right now are sitting on cilantro blossoms. They don't know they have a market for them until people start asking for them. So once people start saying, hey, I had this cookbook, or I saw in the Washington Post about cilantro blossoms, do you have any? They're like, yeah, I'll bring some next week. And then they get to make money off that too. But as far as like kind of, the weeds in the back of the book, things like lamb's quarter, you can, even though it grows wild and it is found, most people forage it, you can grow it. There's a farmer at the Ferry Building who grows lamb's quarter. I bought like a 2-pound bag of it last week and made a lamb and lamb's quarter phyllo pie with like a Turkish spice blend kind of mixed in, and baked it and put some like bee pollen on top. It was really good. I should have. I'm not gonna be able to eat all of it. That would have been weird. I think I would have gotten in trouble if I just like passed out like a homemade phyllo pie, already a piece missing.
It would have been fine.
There's down.
Yeah, I think anywhere that buys farm direct, like a grocery store that buys farm direct, and that's increasing. I think, do you guys have Good Eggs delivery down here? Good Eggs? It's a grocery delivery company in San Francisco. They have things like cilantro flowers and shiso and some other things. I think you'll see this more and more, which is why I think, this book was timely. More and more people want a greater diversity of food. They're eating it in restaurants. They're eating nettles on their pizza, right? And they're like, I want some nettles. And so those things are going to start showing up more and more, hopefully. Because it is good for us, and it is good for the soil to not have just one crop growing in it.
And if you have something that I've found that you really, really want and you go to a specialty store, they can order it for you as long as it's in season. They might not just have a big ask for it, but you can find it usually if you ask.
Totally. Buy Right Market in San Francisco, if you went in and you said like, I want some flowering dill, they'll say, okay, I'll reach out to my farmers and see if I can find something. For sure.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any more questions? It'll kind of be that funky thing where I ask it back.
What did you guys think about did it make it around the smoked fig leaves? What did you guys think?
Where did that end up?
It's like intoxicating. And this is a year old. This is from last year. So good. So I make a sugar out of this and make shortbread. Yeah. I think they're too thick. I've never tried that. Even if you steamed them first, maybe, but they're better and they're a strong flavor. Like grape leaves aren't a strong flavor, but fig leaves are a really strong flavor. I like them more like they infuse something, or they're like powdered into a spice blend or to sugar. But to eat them like a dolma it'd be like when you wrap fish in them, you unwrap the fish and eat the fish, and it's imparted its flavor to the fish. So I think something like dolma, they'd be too strong. Well, 18 Reasons was the cooking school. It's on 18th Street in the Mission. I left as the program director in December, but I'm going to be teaching there. I'm blanking on the date, maybe the 15th of September I'm teaching. So I'm still going to keep teaching there. It's a wonderful cooking school. It's for home cooks only. It's actually a nonprofit organization. So all the money that they make in that little 18th Street event space funds free cooking classes all over the Bay Area and low-income communities. So it's if you live in the city or if you want something to do out one night, it's a fun place to go. All sorts of cooking classes, quirky stuff too, like, breakfasts of Southeast Asia, and I'm teaching flavors of Azerbaijan. Yep. I had my best friend growing up was from Baku, and her family got asylum outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and she lived walking distance from my house. And I grew up around food. I mean, again, Southern family, lots of cooking, but the food so she lived with her mother, her father, her grandparents, their crazy husky named Kazbek, who did not understand any English, and her brother. And there was so much food in that house. I mean, her grandmother just cooked all day, made fresh bread, made every dinner was just like a feast. You come near the kitchen and they're like feeding you. And that food, that's still the food that I crave, and it's still sort of how I cook. And it's kind of a mix. It's kind of a mix of, because all these places that have, sort of like Sicilian food, when you have an area that has been conquered by so many different people, the food becomes fascinating. So, Azerbaijan has been, you have Russian influence, Armenian influence, Persian influence, Turkish influence. Like, the food is just ridiculously good. So I'm teaching a class on that.
So thank you so much for coming and showing us these great recipes. I'm really excited to hear back from you guys about all the great stuff that you do with all the amazing recipes you have.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.